Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. And I don't know. Do you have an addiction? Do you have several addictions? Does everybody have? I think everybody has got an addiction of some kind, be it food, sex, smoking, drinking, doing things like drugs and stuff like that. And oftentimes you would like to be able to stop doing that. And it's not like your mother says, well, you just stop doing it and you don't have to worry about it anymore. Because a lot of times it's like in my case, my addiction has always been smoking. And it's like, okay, so when somebody said, oh, I had a friend who actually said this to me. I threw him out of my house. He said, oh, come on, just quit. It's not a big deal. Just don't do it. It's like, okay, get out, because because it's not day one, it's not day two, it might be day three, it might be a conversation that you have that turns into an argument, and the next thing that you know, you find yourself at the convenience store getting a pack of cigarettes, and you don't even make it back to your car before you're lighting up, because that's your anyway. That's what happens. That's what happens to me. But Meridee, is that right?
That's right.
She's the founder of LaserQuit, and we're going to find out all about that because she deals in terms of people and human beings tend to have addictions, and sometimes addictions can be kind of healthy if you want to go work out, and if part of your addiction is going and getting natural food at the grocery store and you're addicted to shopping that way and stuff. But most of the times our addictions can be self-destructive and negative. Would that be kind of true, Meridee?
I would even say that our addiction to the gym is not a healthy one, because what I find in this world is that people will go from one addiction to another. And so there's still a piece of avoiding in any addiction that we have. And I will tell you, I don't know a single person who's addicted to buying healthy food.
No, I made that one up. But I will. My older brother, who has since passed away, and he had an addiction to alcohol that was he had no stop switch.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that can happen to some. Some are functional alcoholics, and they can hide it for like years and years and years.
Yes.
But in his case, he couldn't hide it for days and days and days because he drank until he fell over. And then he would wake up and have a hangover. And so what did he do? He would drink some more to get rid of the hangover. And then the cycle would begin anew. But when he finally quit and went to AA, he was a pack-a-day smoker that went to a 3-pack-a-day smoker. And he drank 2 pots of coffee a day because
so we call that dry drunking. And what it is just because you have stopped the addiction you're doing, it doesn't mean you have changed your behaviors. And that's the stuff I want to get into today.
Yes, and wasn't it addiction transference?
Yes,
because he
see
got
that
rid
all
of
too often.
I had to laugh because I drove by an AA a place where I knew there was an AA meeting, and everybody, there were like 20 people there, and they were all, it was like break time.
Outside?
Yeah, you can all tell it was break time because everybody's out taking a break, smoking a cigarette and drinking a cup of coffee because they weren't. And then they went back in and said, "Hi, I'm John and I'm an alcoholic." Hi, John. But they were transferring their addiction to something else.
Yes. And a lot of people find that the AAs and the NAs are super helpful, and other people who find that they don't work for them at all because they're constantly being reminded of the shitty person they used to be. Excuse my language. Hopefully you guys don't mind, because there may be a few
We'll
of the
edit
little
that.
bombs dropped here today.
Well, we do have to be careful. We'll edit that part out. So we'll go poo poo heads and stuff.
Poo-poo
So
heads, yes.
yeah. But
So
that's yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, so I just find that there's a lot of that, and it's our transferring of our addictions. And the core of that exact thing is the fact that the majority of us, the addiction isn't really the problem. And this is the problem that I'm seeing everywhere, is the addiction isn't the problem. The addiction is the solution. It's their medicine. It's what's feeding them from the actual problem, which is the trauma and the feelings they don't want to feel. My addiction itself was very similar to yours. So mine is smoking. It is smoking of marijuana. It is smoking of cigarettes. I have had to completely walk away from all. I, of course, did the California sober, which is just marijuana, no cigarettes. I'm not much of a drinker, all of the things. But then I will tell you that, like, I'm going through some things right now, and the first thing that I want to do is smoke a joint, because that joint will take away any responsibility that I have to have around the situation that's happening. It'll
It's
take
a
away
straight.
any of the feelings. It'll take away the discomfort.
Oh yeah, and the interesting thing, somebody asked me. It was my sister. She asked me, "So what's it like?" She's never smoked, but my dad did. My dad told me at one time that he could put his nose into an ashtray and enjoy it. It's like, ugh. So she asked, what's it like to be a smoker? And it's like, and I said, it's like somebody's tapping their fingers on your shoulder once every 10 or 15 minutes, or anytime you do something pleasurable. It's like, hey, remember me? You had
I'm going
something
to
to
get a
eat.
reward.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like every pleasurable thing and every stressful thing that you do in your life, every angry thing that you do in your life is followed by, I need to have a cigarette.
So, do you want to get into the science and the chemicals behind that?
Yes.
So,
Because cigarette, by the way, it costs $15 for a pack of cigarettes these
it's
days. Did you know
25 in
that?
Canada,
Oh, God.
just so you know. And that's a 20 pack, not a 25 pack.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So we are on like another level of crazy over here. So the science behind this, and this is the crazy part, is of course, every single one of us have trauma. So there's none of us that don't. Those who are sitting there going, yeah, well, my family was perfect. You have a different kind of trauma, but you still have trauma. And the trauma is that no one will ever match up to your perfect life you've always had. So it makes it impossible. If you had this incredible dad and all these things, and you're a woman, you're never going to find a man good enough for you. If you had this incredible life and all these experiences, and then you have to go out and do it on your own, and you're not being funded by, the parents anymore, nothing's ever good enough, because now you want to be better than them. So it doesn't matter who we are or how we've been traumatized. We're all traumatized. And the work of being on this planet is to start working on that trauma and heal it to become a better human being. And we are spirits having a human experience. So we're supposed to be here experiencing, whether you want to call that negative experiences or positive, we're here to have both, because you can't have dark without light, and you can't have happy without sad, because happy gets boring. Sadness comes with a lot of different things. So there's other pieces. Every single one of these things comes down to endorphins in your brain. And the number one endorphin is going to be dopamine, which is your reward center. So when we were talking about the different kinds of addictions, we have crazy addictions. We have social media, we have food, we have sex, we have different drugs, we have alcohol. Basically, if you look at all of the things, you are running from something every single time. And so again, like I said, I'm going through my own experience. And the moment that I was like, oh, I'd love to smoke a joint, I thought to myself, what am I running from? What am I trying to escape right now? Because my endorphins have been lowered because I'm feeling sad about the experience that I'm going through. I'm grieving. And so in that grief comes a heaviness. And that heaviness is because my dopamine levels are brought down. So the way that it works is that if you imagine a normal, say a child, before they have ever drank, before they have done any kind of drug, they've done nothing. A child's endorphins, when they start running, when they start exercising, when they start laughing, their endorphins are spiking. When they're given love by a parent, their endorphins are spiking. Number one endorphin that gives you rewards is your dopamine. So we're going to focus on that one today, though. There is the bliss molecule, there's serotonin, you name it, it's in there. And dopamine is your reward center. And a lot of people will say it's their motivation center. And it makes sense because motivation comes and goes. It's discipline that keeps us going. So when we smoke a cigarette, so an example of me or you, and this applies to every different drug or drinking or whatever, but the catch is each thing that you take or use releases different levels of different endorphins when you use it, which is why drunk feels different than high. So when we drink alcohol, dopamine spikes for 20 minutes before it crashes, which is why we need to then have another drink, because now my dopamine is crashing and I'm going to head into sadness. If I have another drink, my dopamine peaks. For someone like you or I was, say, once every hour and 15 was my smoking. A typical person is about once every hour. So we go out, we have our 10, 15-minute cigarette. It spikes our endorphins. And then over the next hour, our endorphins slowly start to come down and down and down. And the minute that we feel them go below a normal level, you have that craving for a cigarette because you're craving that spike again. So that's where every hour comes for us. It's where every 20 minutes comes for a drinker. It's where every 2 to 3 hours, depending, comes for a cocaine addict. And all of these different things, the more you use, the less dopamine your brain will release, the more you need to get that same result. So what happens is your first few times you peak so high, you don't need it for a while, but when it crashes so hard. So imagine a night of drinking. I've never done cocaine, but I have people who are like, when you do cocaine, like the next day you hate yourself. Like everything in your life is awful. I have drank in my life, and I will tell you that I've never enjoyed the taste of coffee, cigarettes, or alcohol. And yet I smoked cigarettes. I did drink, but only about 25 times in my life. And I smoked cigarettes, drank coffee, and had some alcohol.
See, now in your world, your go-to thing was having a joint. Where's
At the beginning, it was cigarettes. And when I gave up cigarettes, it became marijuana.
well, marijuana gave you in, but you see, and then someone like me, I've tried. I can't even. I've tried doing marijuana and gummies and stuff to not, um, and it makes me crazy
Yeah.
because number one, a gummy, you don't know how much THC you're getting at
It's
any
very
given time.
inconsistent. Yes.
And so you don't know how high you're going to get based upon what you had, and you might have eaten it 2 hours ago,
Yeah.
and or you may have the one that my son did was until he threw up was he had a gummy and nothing happened, so he had a second gummy and a little something happened, but it wasn't good enough, so he had a third gummy, and then the first gummy kicked in, and then the second gummy kicked in, and then he threw up.
Yes. Yes. And with all of these, it's the endorphin. So the problem with gummies is that you don't know how much of the THC is in that specific gummy. So they make up like a platter of it, and the whole platter has, say, 100 milligrams, and then they cut that up. Well, you don't know how much is in the specific gummy that you took. So I could take one, you could take one, and be completely different. Also, how we ate, like what we ate that day, how much we ate, how fast our metabolism is moving, all of these affect your body when it comes to that type of thing, which is how come, like if I had 3 drinks, I'd be probably drunk, where someone your size could have 3 drinks and be barely buzzed. So a lot of things, there's a lot of factors in all of these, but the core factors have to do with the endorphins in your brain and the fact that we all have them and we all release them. And the way they affect us is how we're affected by the drug, alcohol, cigarette, etc.
So am I to understand that if you can control your dopamine levels without having to imbibe in whatever your addiction of choice is, if those were stable, then there would be less reason for you to use whatever crutch you're
Less
using.
desire is the word I'm going to use. And it's, yes, absolutely 100% true, which is also why when we go back to the gymming thing or going exercising releases dopamine. So yeah, you can go from one to another. You want to know something crazy? Sugar releases more dopamine and more stuff in your reward center than any drug out there.
I have to tell you a story about that because my brother, when he was trying to be healthy years and years ago, he decided, you know what? I'm just not going to have any sugar at all. That did not go well. And we'll explain why when we come back. We'll be right back in one little old minute.
You became a real estate agent for freedom, success, and real momentum. So why are you still stuck waiting for closings to save you? I'm Ophir Adar, founder of Real Momentum, and I help agents like you become seven-figure earners. My first client that I coached, brand new agent, made $250,000 back in 2006. What's the secret? You feed your white wolf. That's the part of you that's bold and unstoppable and a closer and able to build rapport quickly. So click Get Listings at Real Momentum and let's unleash your real estate potential.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with, well, I'm here and Rochelle's going to be here at one point or another. But we have a great guest for you today. Her name is Meridee, and she's the founder of LaserQuit. And we're going to get into all of that. We're learning about the addictions and how insidious it is, because in a lot of cases, it's hard for you to control, because you can't, it's hard to control your dopamine levels or your serotonin levels and all of that kind of good stuff. And so we use crutches. And regardless of what the crutch is, we all have a crutch that we use. And and I love you brought up working out, because a lot of people, I guess some people that get addicted to anything, they get addicted to. Oh, I know what I wanted to ask you. Is there such a thing as a person that is just naturally has more of an addictive nature than other people?
People with lower dopamine levels. And what I actually learned probably about 10 years ago, which just is crazy. My son was, I want to say, a pain in the butt. Okay. He was a challenging child, and he knows this. When he was about 16, we ended up figuring out, because he was trying to get high off of his friend's ADHD and ADD meds. We ended up finding out that my son is actually ADD, because he would take his friend's ADD meds and he'd be like, I'm going to go to school. And we were all like, wait, what? So people with ADD have lower dopamine levels right off the bat. And when my kid went to the doctor and we explained to him, so he's been trying to, get high off his friend's meds, and instead found out that he is actually focused on them. And my doctor looked at him and said, can I ask you some questions? And he said, yeah. And my son had been really honest with me about everything prior to this. And so my doctor says, have you ever used any drugs? And my son looked at me and smiled and kind of was like, oh, what do I do? And he's like, no, I mean, I've smoked pot. And I was like, I looked at him and I said, you do not lie to your doctor. If there's one person you don't lie to in this world, it's your doctor. And if you need to leave the room, I'm happy to do so. And he looked at me and he said, no, you would know everything, Mom. And so he went ahead and told the doctor, yeah, I've tried cocaine. And my doctor stopped him and said, and what did it make you feel like? And he said, I don't know, I guess more normal and mellow than anything. And my doctor smiled and said, that's pretty standard. And so then he asked him, my son had tried a bunch of different stimulating drugs, and every single one made him calm. So when you have ADD, you are like your system is overstimulated. So when you take a stimulant, it calms your system down. And my doctor walked over and put his hand on my son's shoulder and he said, I want you to know it's not your fault. And I was like, what? And he said, this is not your fault. The majority of undiagnosed ADD and ADHD people that are on the streets are addicts. And that's why they're addicts, because the only time they feel normal is when they are using drugs. And I was shocked. And then to go through and find out that in the 13 years or almost 14 years that I have been doing this, the majority of the addicted people I work with, especially cocaine, but a lot of alcoholics as well, are undiagnosed ADD or recently diagnosed ADD or ADHD. So we're going to be the ones that are going to be the more susceptible to this, 100%.
Now, because this is the world that you travel in and that you are very, very gifted at what you do and can help a lot of people, there's something that I wanted to bring up that I haven't brought up yet on the show, but I think it is important to do this because when my brother was young, he used to take mason jars, you know, what a half mason jar, you know where I'm going with this probably, and he would poke 2 holes in it. And my mom would say, when she found that the lid to the mason jar, she would like, why are there holes in here? Because what he would do, he would take turpentine or other household paint was one, and gasoline would be another one, and it's called huffing. Yeah. Now there are a lot of people, a lot of parents who don't know what huffing is, and it can be as simple as taking, because he made me do it. It was his fault, I promise, and I didn't do it on my own. He made us take, you know, the cooking spray Pam, and you put Pam into the lid, and then you put it up and you huff it, and or breathe it in basically, and it gets you incredibly high, incredibly fast. But what I want all parents to know is if you see any of this behavior and stuff going on, it can be life-threatening. A girl died not too long ago because of the huffing, and I guess it's becoming a thing again amongst preteens and teens. Is that true?
It is very true. And a lot of them nowadays, and when I'm telling you these things, these are not for you to encourage for anyone watching or listening. It's not encouraging you to do these things. I'm just going to hopefully provide parents with some information. But the dust cleaner can that you buy to clean your computer is one of the number one ones that children are using these days to get high. And it is incredibly poisonous and dangerous. It limits the oxygen to your brain, which is where the high comes from.
And that's just a horrible thing.
It can stop your heart right away. Like it just is crazy the things that we will do to escape where we are. And that's all we're doing. And if your children are doing these things, I encourage you to get them support and help. One of the things that I've seen in people who get sober from alcohol, and tell me if you know any of these people, but almost every person that I see in AA is addicted to sugar. And it's because alcohol turns into sugar in your system. After they are. Right? So it turns into sugar in your system. Also, it's so shocking the way that it works. So you put alcohol in your system. And one of the crazy things about it is alcohol is basically like drinking ethanol, which is in gasoline. So if I gave you a can of gasoline, I'll say a can of pop, here you go, it's gasoline, and you drank that, what do you think would happen? And yet no one thinks about this when they're drinking alcohol. But your body, in fact, turns any kind of alcohol into ethanol. And your body, if you have ever noticed, I've seen this, and for me, it was a factor because I'm allergic to alcohol. We all are, just an FYI. When I drink, I throw up. And everyone's like, well, eat first. Now I'm just throwing up what I ate first, regardless. The thing is if you've ever noticed, you eat, you go for dinner, you start having a few drinks, and then you continue on, whether it's to the club or home, and you continue drinking. When you throw up 8-10 hours later, you are throwing up the exact same food you ate 8 or 10 hours later, which at this point, it should be fully digested. And it is not, because your body will shut down every other system to focus on getting the alcohol, ethanol out of your system as quickly as possible. So digestion is not important. Digestion gets put off so it can process the alcohol and get it out of your system.
That's just amazing. You know, it's interesting. And I was just thinking about, I was in the restaurant business for a long time. We had to put the aerosol whipped cream into a cage locked so that the busboys would not sniff because when it has a substance in it, I think I can't remember what it's called, but I think it's laughing gas.
Yeah, nitrogen oxide, I think it's what it is.
Yeah, this is the same stuff. And what happens when you do that and you sniff it, the whipped cream no longer is able to be a whipped cream. It's now just a creamy mess that leaves the can. So we actually had to put it into a locked cage to keep the kids from getting into that. It's amazing the lengths that we will go to get high or to stop the pain. And I got to ask you, because most of us don't recognize it as the pain that we have that we're trying to deal with. We just say, oh, it's a good time and I'm going to have a good time.
How many times have you said, I need to go home and have a drink? Or today, holy, I need a drink.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And another part of that just like came to me again too is if I gave you a bottle of asbestos and said, here, this is liquid asbestos, drink it. You'd be like, no, that will give me cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alcohol is classed with asbestos as a class 1 carcinogen and one of the leading causes of breast cancer in women. These are all things that are hidden. So you have to kind of dig to find the things that I've found. That being said, if this is, you know, the government cares about us so much. When COVID happened, why would you keep alcohol stores open? They exacerbated alcoholism and addiction by 800% over COVID. I was dealing with, you know, I know people who, and I work with now, people who, you know, a mom of a child who on the weekend, she'd have a glass or two of wine in the entire week. And no, the stories you've heard about red wine are baloney. No alcohol is good for you in any amount at all. It is a class 1 carcinogen. But I'm dealing with women who used to drink 1 or 2 glasses of wine on the weekend that are drinking a bottle a day since COVID. So we really need to look at why we're doing what we're doing. And I will tell you that every time I think to myself, because most of us are just like, oh, it's been a rough day, I need a drink. Why are we not saying, holy, it's been a rough day, I feel like I would like a drink, I wonder what I'm avoiding? Because every single one of my addicts, when they message me, because we have coaching that goes along with the treatments that we offer. And when my clients will message me and say, I want to drink so bad, my first question to them is, what emotions are you trying to avoid right now? What happened in your day that has triggered you, so that we can dig into your past to see where that trigger has come from and how we can work to heal it. Because something's surfacing and all you're doing is pushing it down.
Which, by the way, we are told from childhood on, don't cry, don't do this, don't talk back, we're told a lot of stuff not to do. And so we bury a tremendous amount of stuff. And then there's the addictions, the traumas that we bury because we don't want to bring them up. And so a lot of times they just lead to other stuff and things. And we that's why I don't know very many people that do it. I had to laugh. I went to a friend's house. He's been sober for 20 years. He was a heavy beer drinker. His wife is a wine drinker. And we sat together, and I didn't understand this behavior because we sat together and we were having a conversation, he, me, and she was drinking wine, and her daughter kept refilling her glass for her. And it's like he was saying how bad alcohol was, and she was drinking wine and having another glass. And when I left, she was slurring her words. I couldn't believe that he didn't notice it, or did he notice it to choose to ignore it, or was that part of their deal? That was part of their shtick that they were doing.
More often than not, I'm not sure if you've noticed, but it's unspoken.
Yes.
He chose to get sober, but she doesn't really have a problem.
But
And what
she-
I've seen is in relationships that last long term, the spouse has to stop as well. Whether they have a problem or not, the alcohol cannot be in the home. And with me, with what I've seen and what I've experienced on my own, if I had smokes in my house, before I started really working on myself and healing through my own trauma, prior to that, if there was cigarettes sitting there, I promise you, I would have picked one up and smoked it. But because I did not put temptation in my way, I have not smoked a cigarette in over 14 years.
Congratulations. I quit
Thank
for
you.
15 years. Then I started driving a bus in Seattle for a living, and that was a little stressful. So we're talking with Meridee. She's the founder of LaserQuit. When we come back, I want to talk about how people can get a hold of you and also the system that you use to help people, because I tell you, if nothing else gets to you, addictions are very expensive.
They
And we'll be right back.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. And Meridee is here. She's a founder of LaserQuit, and I want to spend some time talking about this. First of all, if this resonates with somebody that's listening to us right now, how do they contact you? How do they get the help that you provide?
So one of the first ways to reach out to us is obviously going to be through our website, which is laserquittherapy.ca or laserquit.net. It will redirect you. You can find us on Instagram under Sober Coach Mayor or laserquit.therapy. I also have phone numbers, but you can find those on our socials and on our websites.
And by the way, if you're in the United States, I want to mention this to you. If you're having a really bad moment in time, there's a number you can call. It's 988, and they can help you. But then you need to call, at one point, you need to call Meridee, because they can help you get to the bottom of, and isn't that what it's all about? Getting to the bottom of what's really going on that nobody wants to look at.
Yes, it really is. And what I find is the issue that I am seeing, I think rehab centers are incredible and they really do help people get themselves sober. The issue that I see them run into and the reason people relapse so often is because all we're doing is getting them sober. Yes, we start talking to them about their emotions and all of the things, but you need to think that 7-day detox is getting the stuff out of their system. And then we spend 30 days with them, working with them, and they start working on their healing. But here's the thing. We go into addiction in a depressed state, meaning our serotonin, our dopamine, all of our endorphin levels are very low, which is why we started using in the first place. And then when we stop using, especially after using for a long period of time, and I mean anywhere from 6 months to 60 years, when we stop using, it will take your brain 14 to 18 months to get to a new normal level in your brain. So you're going to spend the next 14 to 18 months dealing with traumas in essentially the same depressed state that you were in before you used, which is how come they relapse. And that is what makes us so different.
And do tell what.
Okay, so this is the coolest part of it all, is the treatment. So we offer two things. We offer coaching that will help you dig into the trauma, but you need to be at a state in your brain that you can actually start doing that from a normal level. Because I know I have been depressed. I've been clinically diagnosed as clinically depressed. And it feels like you are looking at the world through this incredibly dark fog, and you can only see kind of through the fence in these little cracks. And then I started on medication. It was like this fog slowly started to pull away, which allowed me to see the world, and it didn't feel as heavy. And what we're doing is we're going to give you a treatment, a cold laser treatment. And what that is low level radiation. Yes, I said it. No, it's not dangerous, except in your eye. Low level radiation combined with the LED light. So you've heard, I'm sure, because it's trending right now, is red light therapy.
Yeah.
Ours is a combination of red light therapy along with the low level radiation. And those combination used on acupuncture points for a specific sequence and time will release a massive amount of endorphins in your brain. Now, you do not leave high or drunk, because I'm releasing all of the endorphins at the same time, at the same levels. Whereas, like I said, with alcohol, you're releasing more of one and less of another. And so the different sensations come from different endorphins being released at different levels. We go in and release all of the endorphins at the same time and put you at what would be above a normal average. We also do things to maintain keeping you at above a normal average, to make sure that your brain can recover quicker. And if I'm coming from a place where I'm not depressed, I'm not stressed, I'm not anxious, I'm not fearful, I can start working on the things that scare the crap out of me and make me use whatever it is that is the medicine that covers up those feelings. So these are the things that we really need to focus on, and that's the treatment side. Once we have your brain working where you're not depressed and you feel the best you've felt in many, many, many moons, then we start working on that deep trauma. And the core of that deep trauma, no matter what the thing that has happened, because all of us, the trauma is essentially an event that happened, and then the way we have taken that and moved through it. But the core of every single one is I am not enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not skinny enough. I'm not successful enough. I am not enough.
That's because every magazine you pick up, every television show you watch, every parent that every social media, you're not good enough. You're just not. And then that gets reinforced by people who say that they love you but they
disapprove of your behaviors.
Yeah.
So then when I'm not acting perfectly, and this was a big one for me in my life, is I was always told, your parents love you unconditionally. Let me tell you that my parents loved me very conditionally. If I behaved appropriately, they loved me. If I didn't behave appropriately, they didn't love me and I was being punished. There was different ways. And only now in my 40s am I learning that I can love someone who's not behaving in ways I like from afar, because it doesn't fit or align with my morals or my values. I can still love you from afar. I just don't need to participate in it. And that's unconditional love.
That is a huge difference that a lot of people have real trouble with. And in addition to that, in my world, people vibrate at different levels.
Yes.
And if you're vibrating at a much higher level and you're surrounding yourself with people who are vibrating at a much lower level, then you are not living up to your expectation, and they're not making your expectations. And so what do? You either find new friends who do vibrate at your level, or you lower your level to match the people that are in your life, which I think is what most people do.
Yes, and it's actually called the crab effect. There is if you look up the crab effect, If you put a bunch of crabs in a bowl and one of them starts to get out, the other ones will grab him and pull him right back in. So the crab effect is a very real thing. If you spend your time, it's the same thing about the whole one rotten apple can ruin an entire batch. But if you got rid of that one rotten apple, the other parts will last for a long time. It is the same as the crab effect. What you surround yourself with is what you will become.
And a lot of us don't even recognize that that's even a thing.
Yeah.
And but it can be so negative for you and your especially if you're a great one is, and you would know this, you're working to get rid of an addiction. And so if you surround yourself, as example, if I surround myself with a bunch of smokers, then the chances of me going and saying, hey man, yeah, got a cigarette I could borrow, and
they'll enable your behavior because you're bringing yourself back down to their level.
Meridee, I got to tell you, because when I was driving a bus for a living, I quit for 15 years. Quit smoking because I got pneumonia, and the nurse looked at my X-ray and said, "Are you a smoker?" And I said, "Why?" She said, "Well, there's nothing there yet, but I can see that it's on." And so I quit for 15 years. And then I started driving a bus, which was stressful enough. And then I got divorced, which was stressful enough. And then my son, who was a smoker, came by, and I said, hey, all right, dang it, give me a cigarette. I'm going to have one. Yep. And I had that one, and I said, can I have another one? And he said, yeah.
I always say to people, if you were hanging out, so especially with my smokers, because most of them are like, can I just have one? And I'm like, okay, how about this? If you were hanging out with a cocaine addict and they said to you, I'm just going to do one line, would you say, okay? If someone that was an alcoholic said, tonight I'm just going to have one beer, would you say, okay? No, you would say, you will be starting at square one. You will ruin everything you have done to this date if you do. And it's the same for a smoker.
There are now, and that being said, there are some people who in this world, they can have a glass of wine once a month, and that's fine. But I'm willing to bet that if you were to talk to them in depth and deeply, that they would have another addiction in some other aspect of their life that is just, maybe not just as, but can be destructive as well.
It can be. They definitely can be. So it depends on the destructiveness, or the destructiveness depends on the way it's affecting your life. And that's where a lot of people will say, well, I'm not addicted. And then I'm like, okay, well, let's do the summer without alcohol. And when people's reaction is, well, why would I want to do that? Right there, you need to look at the reaction within yourself. Oh my God, if I told myself I couldn't drink for a month, that would be horrible. Would it though? So no. For me, that's where all of this comes to again. If you're scared of being sober, it's because you're scared of meeting yourself, because sobriety is where you meet yourself, your true self. And that's the hard part. And there's parts about it that people don't talk about. Like the parts of sobriety that people don't talk about is actually meeting the real you, having to look in the mirror and be like, ew. And I'm not saying looking at the physical side of yourself. I'm saying looking in the mirror and saying, oh my God, I just acted like that. Waking up in the morning and seeing your texts, knowing that the people you surround yourself with, you no longer can surround yourself with, because they're going to be the ones encouraging you to drink when you've said, I don't drink.
Why would you explain something to me?
Yes.
Why is it that when you go in and you're in a social setting, and this has happened to me, and when I don't feel like I want to have anything to drink, and when somebody says, hey, can I get you a beer? No, I don't think so. Do you got a Coke or something? And it's like, come on, just have one.
Or have you gotten this? Are you not, do you have a problem?
Yeah. You get that as well. It's like, so why aren't you drinking?
We need to normalize this a little more. So my response has been, well, I mean, are you doing heroin tonight? Because we could do that instead. And people are just like, oh, I'm like, yeah, it's the same thing, you guys. I don't need alcohol to have fun. And a perfect example of this, my daughter just turned 22, and I did post a video, like I made a compilation of everything because we set it up. It was a surprise party. I rented, yes, she is 22, but I rented the blow up massive water slide.
Yeah.
And then I turned my entire backyard into Love Island theme. And what comes with the Love Island theme is their challenges. So one of the girls that came, my daughter has said, I'm not going to drink for the summer, because it was a conversation we had. And I said, good for you. And then her birthday shows up, and one of her friends had brought one of those, what do they call it? Shotgun. So it's like a full funnel with a hose to it. And she had brought that. And I said, are you going to be drinking? And she was like, no. So we ended up using it in one of our challenges. But the problem is people thought it was alcohol. And there was a video of me, and the video was actually quite hilarious because they were all laughing at me and were like, wow, you really haven't drank, because it's water and it is spraying out and all over me. And like only maybe 3 mouthfuls ended up in my mouth and down my throat. But it was part of the challenge. You had to shotgun a bottle of water, or whatever it's called. You had to shotgun that. Then you had to climb up the stairs of the slide, but we had soaped them up. And then you had to do some fancy dance to come down it. And when you hit the bottom, you had to kiss your partner. And then your partner had to do the exact same thing. And it was timed. So the two people would determine the time. And then whoever had the couple that had the best time was the one who won the challenge. Because in Love Island, they have these themed times. Now, in Love Island, none of them are alcohol based. But she had brought this. And the challenges we had done up to this point were like, well, now you have to do a yoga pose or something like that. And then somebody was like, well, we have this. Why don't we shotgun? And I was like, I looked at my daughter and said, you said you weren't drinking. And she was like, can we do water? And I was like, I'm down. So, because I haven't drank in almost 16 years. And so that ended up being like the thing. But then when I posted it, I ended up losing like probably almost 100 followers immediately and one person had the balls to write, drinking ? And I was like, no, I haven't drank in 16 years, but I also understood. So I just removed it from my social media because I don't want that judgment. I don't want that people thinking that's what it was. It was water.
And Rochelle is here. And
hello.
Hello, Meridee. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for allowing me to. I've been listening behind the scenes. My allergies are taking over my entire being today.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But I'm finally to the point where I can breathe and I can open my eyes a little bit bigger. And so I thought I'm going to make sure I join in.
Awesome.
And while she's finishing getting herself fixed, we're going to take a 30-second break, and we'll be right back. And then we're going to talk more. Have you been listening to this conversation, Rochelle? It has been wonderful. Yeah. She is just awesome, and she's very smart, too. So we'll be right back.
When the game is on the line, championship teams know the game plan. They communicate and work together to win. We all need a game plan to protect ourselves online. Talk to family and friends so they know how to stay safe too. Create strong passwords, turn on multi-factor authentication, update software, and recognize and report phishing, because online safety is not something you want to fumble. Get more game-winning tips at CISA.gov/secure-our-world. Then share them with family and friends.
Welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, and Rochelle's here and Meridee's here, and it's so nice to have you because she works with people and there's actually science behind what you do. It's not just a wing and a prayer and a hope for that I'm gonna stop, and it's not the one that I always didn't understand was the what do you, I don't even know what you call it, where you shock therapy or something, that you drink something and then they give you a drug that makes you throw up every time you have a drink. What is that therapy?
I don't know what it is called, because it's not one that I encourage people to do. I will tell you that.
No, it's like, and by the way, the one that's here is now out of business. So apparently it wasn't all that successful.
Fair.
But to find out more about you, how do people do it?
So again, if you want to find me, laserquittherapy.ca, and laser is always spelled with an S. Or laserquit.net will redirect you. You can find me on Instagram at sobercoachmare or laserquit.therapy.
Very cool. Now, Michelle, do you have any questions that you'd like to ask since you are recently additioned?
Yes. Well, I heard at the beginning when I had missed out for a section of it that you were talking about kind of the background of what started this. Is there something, like, I've wondered along the way, has there been a point where you're like, this is just so difficult, or this is kind of frustrating, or maybe even like, is this even going to work and be what I want it to be for people? And an experience that happened, then you were like, no, this is exactly why I'm doing this, and it just stayed with you that whole time?
Oh my God, I love this question because there has been many, many, many times that I have questioned, because I have multiple businesses, and I've invested any profits from my other businesses into this business because I believe so deeply in it. And because we have 95% success rates with our smokers and 98 with our heavily addicted. And it's a game changer. So most of my concerns are usually my own, like, am I good enough? Am I enough? Am I good enough to help people? Am I healed enough? So again, all back to that, am I enough? But then there was this one woman, and she came in. There's been a lot of them, but this one woman came in, and she was not being totally honest with me. And I didn't know this until like way after we had treated her. And she came in, and she was agoraphobia, and she had, I don't know what it's called. There's like a disorder where you pull your hair out and it's trickle something, and they pull their hair out until they're bald. And it's not alopecia, because that falls out on their own. They're literally stressed and pull their hair out. And she said she had that. So there was the two, and she vaped. And then she said, well, when we were doing our consultation, she ended up telling me also, I have massive anxiety and clearly depression. When you have agoraphobia, a lot of times there's depression with it. And I was like, okay, well, we can treat for sure because it's the anxiety that keeps her from going outside. So I said, we can treat the anxiety, we can treat the depression, and we can definitely treat the vaping. I don't know for sure that we can treat the hair pulling, but I do think that it will be quite effective. And so we gave her first treatment, and she left. And typically my clients will come back about every 4 to 8 weeks, really depending on their treatments and how it affected them and all of the things. And this woman comes back, and she came back about 6 weeks later, and her husband came with her. And he said, I cannot believe how different my wife is. And I was like, okay. And he said, we go for nightly walks when I'm home. He did work out of town, which also contributed to her agoraphobia. Mm-hmm. Now she's walking, whether he's home or not. She's out of her house every single day. She came back, and she was already having hair growing back. And she said to me, I have completely stopped pulling my hair out. She said, my anxiety is completely gone. I'm no longer vaping. My depression is at what she called a manageable level. And she kept saying to me, I feel like the more treatments I get, the better I'm going to get. And it is true. It is how it works. It does build. And I was so excited about it. And she said, but I have to tell you something. I haven't been honest. And I was like, okay. And she said, when I came to see you, you asked if there was any disorders. Because, for example, I cannot treat nobody with cold laser can treat bipolar disorder. Because their brain does not respond well to the positive endorphin or to dopamine. So I was like, oh no. And she said, I have in the past and typically have a minimum of 50 grand mal seizures a day. So grand mal seizures are actually quite mild seizures. Yeah. She didn't want to tell me because I am releasing endorphins into her brain. And I was like, that's a really big risk to take. And she said, I knew you wouldn't treat me, because I said I don't know if I would have if you had told me. And she said, I want you to know that you have changed my life so much that I think you need to start working with people with grand mal seizures. And I said, what do you mean? She said, I went from having 50 of them, and they only lasted her anywhere between 2 and 3 minutes. But the after effect is pretty intense as well, for at least 5 minutes.
And you said she had 50 a day?
At least 50 a day. And she was on medication. And she said to me, I'm down to having maybe 5 grand mal seizures a day. And the lasting effect afterward is so mild. And she said, and my seizures are way more mild. And I was just like mind blown in the moment. And so I literally pulled my phone out and I was like, we are doing a testimonial video. And she was like, yeah, we are. And this is a woman who did not want to leave her house. She was a completely different person after our treatments. And I was so grateful. I mean, at first I was pretty upset because I was like, she did sign a waiver and all the forms and stuff, but also like, that's scary. Like, that's something you should have told me. And she's like, well, my doctor wouldn't let me do it. No one would let me do it. And even my husband was up my butt about it and all the things. And we ended up putting her in such a lovely place. After a year, she no longer had agoraphobia. She was not vaping. Her depression was completely under control. Her anxiety was so rare that it occurred, and she was growing her hair.
Yeah.
So it was probably one of my clients.
Oh, congratulations.
Yes, indeed. That's a great story. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, guys.
And by the way, if somebody wants to contact you, because I think it is, if you're having 50, when does she have time to do anything else?
That's
She
what I'm
did.
saying. That's all
Part of
day.
that's part of the agoraphobia and all the things that were happening.
It's
I would
it's amazing.
probably, I mean, that's understandable. The fact that she even left to come and put herself into your presence and want that for herself is like, just
I
give the
know.
woman some help. So that's
Right. And it was
that's-
interesting because when she first came, like I can only do so much. I am the type of person who I can get it possibly, I want to say get away with more. Like I can say things with a little more tough love and people are like, oh, I can see she actually cares, which is why she's saying it. And I did press this woman because I could tell that things just weren't quite, they weren't 100%, but I knew I could help with certain things. So I just zipped my mouth and moved forward. And if I had known that, she's probably right. I probably would have said, I can't treat you. You need to. The fact that her husband had dragged her out and made her show up, that alone, I was like, I am so wow in this moment. And so it's not just that either. I treat ADHD because again, like I said, the dopamine levels in people with ADHD are so low. So I treat people with ADHD. I've been treating kids with autism with unbelievable results. One of the things they're known for not having is any kind of empathy, understanding other people's emotions, any of those things. And they're very angry. All of those things are changed with a LaserQuit treatment. So we're not limited to addictions, but the addictions is where my passion really lies. But I will help anyone who comes to me and says, I want your help.
And if they want your help, how do they find you?
So they need to go to LaserQuit therapy.ca or laserquit.net. You can find me on Instagram at sobercoachmare or laserquit.therapy. And I want to just throw out there one other thing. We are partnering with businesses who want to offer our services. So if you're interested and you have, say, a salon or a massage therapy clinic or any of those things, you're in the wellness industry and this sounds like something that you would be interested in, find me because we partner with people and you pay me a commission for teaching you how to do it. Most of the costs are as you make the money, not paid up front. So we're looking for more people to partner.
That's a really unique idea. Because most people say, okay, give me $100,000 and then you can go and see if you can make some money.
No, my goal is to help as many people as I can. And the best way for me to do that is to make it as accessible as possible.
That's why you're on Positive Talk Radio. Thank you. And you're going to have to come back. You're delightful.
No, thank you.
Yeah, all those, you said one specific thing about ADHD and people having lower dopamine levels. And I'm like, okay, everybody just hold up. So that's going to be my first question. If I can remember to start our next show with you. And thank you so much for this time. I myself might have to just take over the next show because Kevin got too much time.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I hope everybody has a great day and go talk to her. And again, if they want to reach out to you, how do they do it again?
LaserQuitTherapy.ca or laserquit.net. Instagram is sobercoachmare or laserquit selves.therapy.
Beautiful.
And you, I want to see that video of people climbing the soap thing and going down the slide. And
There's some pretty great videos we got. My son's girlfriend ended up coming. She went to go up and couldn't make it up and came out, and she was just covered in bubbles, so she looked like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. It was super fantastic.
Love it.
thank you, everybody, and have a great day. And thank you so much for being here. Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got. That's Kevin